everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for August 24th, 2022. May I have the roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Here.
Vice Chair Feck, Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Lesnar Buxton,
Here.
Commissioner Longstreet, Commissioner Anander LaBerge.
All right, thank you. Director Zachary, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No, Chair McGill, no changes.
Thank you. At this point, ask if we have any written public comment. I didn't see anything come through before other than the photos from Garden Street for the tree item. Anything else? No. All right, that takes us to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. I do not have any speaker slips. It's going to be one of those days. In front of me, do we have anything remote?
Anyone who would like to make general public comment on an item not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, we have one hand raised. Ms. Victoria Valente, go ahead.
Ms. Valente, you have 2 minutes.
Commissioners, as you know, for the past year and a half, I've made many attempts to influence the direction of the future Ortega Park pool design based on what I know and based on what I've learned. At first, I was told it was too early, in the early days. Later, I was told it was too late. That the public had been provided ample opportunity to provide input. But this was not true then or now. Sure, the department can say that they held public meetings and conducted surveys, but I question the manner in which this was done. Efforts have been made from the start of this project to stifle community input with regard to the murals and with regard to the pool design. At the very first meeting, the public was told that only a non-competition pool would be considered at this location. Language in the survey, as well as the brainstorm boards, were pre-printed with these words. Aquatics, by definition, indicates competitive sports. Without a competition pool, the aquatics community had no reason to get involved in this project. So the project played possum with the aquatics community. And later, the city said that the aquatics community lacked the interest to get involved. To make matters worse, the surrounding community was not educated on the type of aquatics facility that would provide the best opportunities for their families. The city of Oxnard provides an excellent example of how this should be done. Instead, our community was told that the renovated pool was designed to provide year-round access and ensure that the pool is not monopolized by competitive aquatics programs that potentially reduce community access to the pool. But we know what would be in the best interest of the aquatics community and the community at large. I think I have depicted this fairly well, and the pool design included in this year's petition, a design that has been approved by the former Vice President of USA Swimming, Mary Jo Swally. I hope you will give this some consideration. Better late than never. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valente. And stop. Sorry, okay.
We have one more hand raised.
We have one more hand raised? Okay, great.
We have
thank
two
you.
hand raised.
All right.
Fire tablet, Jess, you will have 2 minutes.
Are we taking comment on the pool on Ortega Park?
This is public comment. You may speak on anything that is not included on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to make a real quick thing about the pool. I think it's a good idea. I'll just make this really quick. And I think you guys should adopt Ms. Valente's presentation that she has done in the past with you guys. As a parent, raising 2 kids, doing swim and water polo, I think it's a good thing, especially for the low-income families in the neighborhood. And I know you guys are really pushing a skateboard park, but I think if you guys do, I think you should scale it down maybe to little children. because of the issues that we have on Cabrillo Boulevard with the skate park over there and the older youth with the drinking and smoking. I would hate to see that be a big issue when we're trying to fix up Ortega Park. So if you guys can take those things in consideration, I'd appreciate it very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
We have one more hand raised.
Okay,
Tino
let me-
de Guevara.
Yeah, I just need to stop and restart. Okay. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Very good. Hi there, this is Tino de Guevara. I am the president of the Santa Barbara East Side Society. We're the organization that does the Milpas Street Parade as well as the Halloween Parade. We are very much in support unanimously of Ms. Valente's project. We feel that the safety issue is integral to the welfare of our community, being able to teach kids how to swim. We also support the fact that we need a larger pool that will accommodate a very large area and growing neighborhood. We also want to say that are interested in having a consideration around the staffing that would make this a safe place where kids and family can come together, learn how to swim and participate in other activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have any other public comment? Okay, great. Thank you very much. That then takes us to the Commissioner Committee assignment reports. But before I do, just a question. At some point, we will be putting Ortega Park back on the agenda, yes? Director Zachary?
Chair McGill and commissioners, yes, although we don't know yet when, because we want to do it at a time where there's enough information to present to the commission.
Okay, great. So it will be agendized, and then we'll have a full
In the
conversation.
near future,
Yeah.
without committing to any 1 month or time, yes.
Okay.
There's a lot of work that's underway right
Okay.
now.
I just, since we're hearing public comment, I think it's good to have it on the record that that's coming.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, because Ms. Valente, I mean, she has done public comment and visited Ortega Park a few times. When can we talk and address her concern, just to make heads or tails of things?
Well, that's why I asked Director Zachary about putting it on the agenda, because really it's something that will need to be agendized for a meeting so we can have a full staff report and a full conversation. Yeah.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, without getting into a discussion, which we can't do without agendizing this item, we've had many community meetings related to this park project, and Ms. Valente has attended all of those meetings, I believe, or most of those meetings. We anticipate as we move forward, we will continue to be reaching out to the community. We had at our last murals meeting where we presented kind of the consensus around where the murals would be relocated in the park, that our next community meeting would actually be around the community meeting space, the plaza, the stage, the turf area, the playground, where we'll be actually reaching out to everyone in the neighborhood, asking them to come forward to tell us what amenities they really want in that space and how they want it organized. So that hasn't been set yet, but it's likely to occur in, I'm going to say September. We just don't have a date yet, and perhaps before the next commission meeting, again, to inform the design process, because we don't want to get too far along in that effort without checking back in with community members. We've had a lot of input on how they want to use this space. We just need to make sure we have the amenities that will support that. And certainly the commission will be apprised of when that meeting occurs.
Okay, and we really can't have a discussion about it at any depth now.
I don't want to discuss, I just want to clarify something,
Sure.
a question. How does it get decided ultimately about what amenities will go? What role does the commission play, and who gets to make the final decision on whether it's a skate park or whether there's a pool or whether there's both, and the scale and things like that?
So the project has been approved. So we've gone through all of the public review. It's been through ABR for concept, it's been to the Planning Commission, and they ultimately provide the entitlements for the project. We're in final design and design development, and that's where those tweaks occur. But ultimately, the project itself, if it was to change substantially, it would require redoing the entire process. And again, I would prefer to do this under an agendized item because we could find ourselves people wanting to be part of this conversation that are not here today.
So, and that juncture, I'm going to just stop it here, and we'll have to move on.
Trying to
with it.
understand what role the commission plays, if any. Why are we needing to talk about it if we have no role to make decisions like that?
I would be happy to follow up with you after this meeting to try to lay it out to make it more clear for you.
Okay, great.
How we are, where we are.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, with that, now I will move to the Commissioner Committee assignment reports. And I'm going to just start over here on my left with Commissioner Aldana.
Okay. I attended a Neighborhood Advisory Council meeting. The Neighborhood Improvement Task Force was there, and it was a good turnout from the community. It was basically the east side. Good, I'd say good 30 attended. That was on the second Monday of the month. And there was discussion from trees to police issues, homeless issues, everything in general. And the meeting even lasted an extra hour, so I'm glad that staff let everybody speak. That was a good job by Angela Oslin and Barbara Anderson there. They took the lead on that. Great job.
Good, good. I was going to say Vice Chair Clark, Commissioner Clark.
Hi, the Park Foundation did not meet this month. I was unable to attend the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, but I did reach out to several members and ask them to talk to me in detail about their visit to make sure if there's anything I needed to bring back or convey to this commission, I would be able to do so, and we will come to those items later on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Nander-LaBerge.
Thank you. I'm actually going to give a 2-month update
Okay.
for the Arts and Crafts Show. So from July, the members made a really important decision that they've been debating about with how many minimum hours they need to participate in order to get their attendance credit. And that means that they must exhibit their merchandise at least 5 hours each Sunday that they're there to get their attendance credit. Unless they don't reserve space, and then they're going to go down to the end of the show, they can be there for 2 hours. So that was something they've been really considering for quite a while. My apologies, my apologies. And then that meeting in July, they actually admitted 5 new artists. Yes, I know, exciting. So we've got paintings, coasters, and trays from Bettina Rifo, jewelry from Thomas Mendoza, books from Cynthia Rodriguez, note cards from Dave Schrader, and some woodcut and lithograph prints, digital art, sculptures, stuffed animals, looks like a lot of things, from Corinne Trujillo. So that's exciting. And then for their August meeting, they made some more decisions, and they elected a new committee chair, Deborah Healy, who runs the Yes Store and has been a longtime member of the show. And something that was going to potentially come back our way is they have some violation procedures for their code of conduct that they would like to have. If there is any sort of decision made by staff and somebody's not in agreement with it, they'd like it to come before the commission for final determination. So they're still considering that.
Okay, thank you. And again, that was something that we have as an upcoming agenda item, yes.
Oh, and we do have 3 more new artists from that. So some sewn items, jewelry, and photography. So lots of new artists coming.
Oh, that's great news. That's really good news. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Leslie Buxton.
I would unable to attend the council meeting this month with a visit.
Okay, thank you very much. And as Commissioner Clark reported, Park Foundation did not meet this month, and neither did the De La Guerra Plaza Revitalization Project or the Arts and Culture Subcommittee. And we do not have a youth council report, correct? Correct. Okay, that takes us to ceremonial items. Do we have any employee recognition this month?
Yes, Chair McGill and Commission, we have one of our staff members, Ramiro Arroyo, who also goes by Beto, was recognized for his 10 years of service. He is a parks supervisor and oversees a variety of parks throughout the city's park system. He started with us as a parks lead and was promoted a number of years ago to a park supervisor position.
Great. Well, congratulations, and thanks, as always, the people who are on the ground on the parks. They keep it clean and safe for all of us, so they perform a great service. So thank you very much. All right, so moving on, we are now at the summary of council item actions, and we have a short list this month of 1. Does anybody have any comments or questions about that item? Looks pretty straightforward. All right, and then that takes us to minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes this month to approve. The first is from the June 22nd special meeting, which was the site visit. And the recommendation is that we waive the reading and approve the minutes of the special meeting of June 22nd. And that's when we visited Sunflower Park and really looked at the, I can't remember the formal name of it, but the mulching on the playground. Eastside Neighborhood Park, where we really toured the renovation, had a long conversation about the garden. And then Ortega Park, where we reviewed the project and answered a lot of community questions. So with that, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion. The other thing, it says right here, public comment, none, but there was public comment. There was 3 or 4 people that spoke.
At Ortega Park, there was, yes.
Besides that, if we could make that one correction, and
There is actually just a small, the addresses on the parks are backwards.
on the back,
Sunflower's on Mason and East Side is up on Soledad.
yeah. Oh, okay, but there was public comment, that's all I'm
It
saying.
does yeah, you're right.
And
It
it says
does
right here,
mention the
not-
public comment on the page 2.
Yeah, it says 3 members of the public attended the portion of the tour at Ortega Park, and their questions were answered by staff.
I think what makes that hard is we didn't have speaker slips out in the field. I think that's
Yeah.
Okay, well, just with that one correction that says none, I would like to make a motion to pass the minutes.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. And then the second set of minutes is for July, and that we waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of July 27th. And I actually noticed something on that one that I meant to actually ask about, but the one thing I noticed was that on the De La Guerra Plaza tree, which one is that? 624 East De La Guerra Plaza, I believe that was a 6-1 vote, not a 7-0 vote. It is correct?
It is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, great. Well, okay. In that, do we have a motion?
I can make a motion to waive the reading and approve the minutes of the July Parks and Rec Commission meeting. I'm sorry, was I mumbling? Did you hear me?
I'll second that. So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so moved. So that then takes us to our trees. So, oh, wait a minute, I'm in last month's trees. All right. So Superintendent Slack, over to you.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove 2 queen palms and 1 Mexican fan palm. The Mexican fan palm is located within the front setback of the property, and the queen palms are located in the public right-of-way as street trees at 714 North Voluntario Street. The primary reason the applicant was requesting removal was due to comprehensive landscape improvements, both in the parkway and also in the front setback of the property. The applicant expressed an interest in removing the palms due to their close proximity to overhead transmission lines. There are like overhead electrical lines from Southern California Edison that are carrying voltage, so they're routinely trimmed by the subcontractors for California Edison. And I'm sure you've seen them around town. They hit them pretty aggressively, and there's not a lot left. It doesn't kill the palm. The meristem is still alive, so it can generate new fronds, but looks pretty unsightly. Similar concerns were noted with the Mexican fan palm in the front setback, and it also was fairly close in proximity to those overhead lines, but the primary driver to that was outlined as maintenance concerns. The applicant did state on the application that they were interested in planting 2 new street trees, shade trees, as well as planting a tree aloe, which is a sort of a tree-esque plant in the front setback. It would be very similar to a palm in that it's a monocot, so it's not really a true like shade tree or broadleaf tree like we're used to. The committee reviewed all 3 trees, did note that the proximity to the overhead electrical lines was a big concern, that it was very practical and of community benefit to look at using street trees, shade trees as in lieu of palm trees within the parkway. The Mexican fan palm was noted as being in good health, but again, the conversation sort of circled back to it's only a matter of time until it begins being subjected to pretty aggressive utility pruning as well. And ultimately, after review, the committee voted to approve the removal of both the street trees and the setback tree on the condition the applicant plant 2 new designated street trees and also the tree aloe as proposed on the front setback. And we reviewed it all together, so that the setback tree, the committee determined that the commission could make the findings of good forest management on the basis that eventually it's going to be in conflict with those overhead utility lines.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Commissioner Aldana?
Yeah, what is the designated street tree for Voluntario?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, currently it's the mimosa is a common name. Albizia julibrissin is its botanical name. So it's, over the last year, we've seen that it has become highly susceptible to this little critter called the invasive shot-hole borer. So chances are we'll be looking at redesignating the species due to its new problems with this pest that's relatively new in the area. But currently, on record, mimosa is the designated street tree species.
And once again, the type of tree that will be on the parkway?
So Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, it will be staff's intent to sort of fast-track modification of the designation. So I would say that while it is mimosa, the plan is to change it to something that we know it doesn't have pest or disease-related issues, like the currently designated tree.
So the trees to be planted, if we approve, is to be determined?
Correct.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'm conscious that I need to look and also be heard. Okay, with that, I will turn it to public comment. I don't see any speaker slips. Do we have anyone wishing to speak on this agenda item?
Anyone who would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. No hands raised.
Okay, thanks. All right, so with that, I will open up for discussion and/or a motion as appropriate.
I'll make the motion to agree with the street tree committee.
And since we do have a setback, we need also a finding and may I amend your motion to add that the principles of good forest management will be best served by the proposed removal?
Yes, you may.
We have a cheat sheet. Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, so moved. Thank you. And that takes us to Mission Ridge Road.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove one lemon-scented gum and also a cook pine at the property of 2151 Mission Ridge Road. It's somewhat unique, but these trees are actually within the right-of-way. The stone wall at the property would really be indicative of where the property lines are. Mission Ridge is a kind of a unique street. It's not very like traditional in the sense that you have sidewalks and parkways, but the right-of-way is quite wide up there, so these trees technically fall under the street tree ordinance because they're within the public right-of-way. So in the event that approval is recommended, no findings necessary in situations involving trees within the public right-of-way. So the applicant was requesting the removal of both trees purely due to landscape updates throughout the public right-of-way. The entire property is going through pretty significant revisions right now, and there currently exists, I don't know the exact number, but there's a sort of a sprinkling of olive trees and coast live oaks that occur within the public right-of-way, in addition to this cook pine and this lemon-scented gum. And it was the property owner's hope to remove the lemon-scented gum and the cook pine and add to that existing theme and plant additional olive trees and coast live oak trees within the public right-of-way. And so there were 3 olive trees proposed and 2 coast live oak trees proposed to be planted in lieu of the existing lemon-scented gum and cook pine. The committee reviewed the request, noted both trees were in fair shape, and the conversation quickly turned to the proposal to plant additional trees and the benefit that those trees would provide potentially in lieu of the existing trees. Again, noting that they both were in fair shape. The lemon-scented gum is currently growing up through an existing native coast live oak, so there's a bit of conflict there. Some of the comments from the committee in regards to the trees were both have relatively small statures in terms of the actual biomass and tree canopy that's exhibited. The cook pine's quite narrow, very upright, and the lemon-scented gum canopy in most cases is pretty sparse and relatively tight in terms of canopy spread, especially when you look at the long-term mature potential of something like a native coast live oak. And there was discussion about the species used. The olive is a very, drought tolerant, very common planting in Santa Barbara. The coast live oak is also commonly found, especially in this Mission Ridge corridor, the whole Riviera. You see them occurring naturally, and it's a tree with great long-term potential, also high drought tolerance. And after review, the committee determined that the proposal to plant 5 trees in lieu of the 2 existing trees far offset the existing loss in biomass, and determined the long-term potential of the new trees would be of significant benefit to the community and the property specifically, and voted to approve the removal of the cook pine and the lemon-scented gum at 2151 Mission Ridge Road.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Slack?
I had a question. So you were saying the canopy of the cook pine is tight and dense compared to the replacement trees. Does that make it less valuable in terms of, offsetting climate change and stuff with sequestering?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, I think that's a fairly accurate statement. When we look at things like carbon sequestration, like stem size, I think is of huge value. The whole plant itself, all of the wood is technically capable of storing carbon. I think the big thing in the comparison of like the value of a cook pine versus say a native coast live oak in terms of its environmental benefit would be like reduction in heat island effect. So you have much larger canopy spread, so you're trapping and interrupting lots of that direct sunlight. Stormwater is also something where like larger canopy trees really have a lot more impact, where you're capturing more of that rainfall. That rainfall is moving, you know, from the tips, moving through stem flow all the way down, you know, into the ground. So those are like probably way more powerful environmental benefits, I think, than just true carbon sequestration. And the same would be true of, you know, particulate matter reduction. And anything that is going to be impacted by a broader, larger canopy tree, those trees are always going to provide more environmental benefit.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I have a question. It's kind of half question, half comment. And it's more related to the Cook Pine than the gum tree. The gum tree, I mean, it's definitely growing through an oak. So it's, I mean, I see the conflict there. Looking at the Cook Pine and thinking back through 4.5 going on 5 years, we do not have really much of a practice of approving the removal of mature trees, even if they aren't that aren't really doing, you know, that aren't doing active harm. We tend to not approve the removal of mature trees, even if they aren't perfect canopy trees. Witness all the palms that we don't approve. So I guess my question is, regardless of the mitigation of the number of trees, what makes this tree stand out from all the ones that we do not approve? I'm having a consistency issue with this.
And Chair McGill and Commissioners, that's a very good question. I think when you look at the specifically Municipal Code 15.20, as opposed to 15.24, which is the Preservation of Trees Ordinance, where it does require a specific finding for removal. The 15.20, the review is a little bit more broad, and the committee's determination and support for the removal was purely for the benefit of the urban forest. And you could make the argument that, you know, retention of living tree is also of benefit. I think the review and the recommendation had a lot to do with sort of evaluating the proposal, evaluating the trees on site, and trying to kind of find a sweet spot also for the applicant's desires and the long-term gain benefits of the urban forest. In terms of specific Cook Pines, I think you're right in some instances. I think it would be more of an Araucaria in terms of a genus that has historically been denied. I do recall one example in the last couple years of a property that had a front setback tree, specifically a very large Cook Pine, probably twice this size, that was approved for removal, due purely to landscape improvements as well. So there have been, in the recent past, Cook Pines approved for removal also within the front setback of properties.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, you know, just so that my background conversations are out in the foreground, my concern is that with these larger properties where there's more space to plant, it seems sometimes easier for people to get approval because there's more spaces to put trees, bluntly. I do get concerned about consistency and in necessary developments, sometimes getting denials because they don't have the space for mitigation. And it bothers me, and you know, I'm seeing this play out this month, so I continue to have a question about that Cook Pine.
I had one random question about it too, after agreeing with your statements. So when I drove past and slowed down to look at things, I was looking up at it from the road because I was traveling, I guess, north maybe. But if I was not on that property, but on this across the street looking at it, would it be blocking any kind of view? I mean, I have a sprained ankle. I didn't get up and walk around the hill, so I can't say whether or not, no?
No, I walked
Because I was looking up.
Yeah,
Okay.
I walked it, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, I would agree with Chair McGill that it's not blocking anybody's view up there. And that was certainly not part of any discussion, and we've never had any communication with any adjacent property owner about that.
I just ask because sometimes it turns out that there's view motivations, and I wanted to make sure I didn't miss something.
Commissioner Hernandez-Laberge.
Thank you. It seems that it's not terribly intruding anywhere. Is it not possible for at least the Cook Pine to stay and have the other trees still that they're proposing to be planted there, sort of around it? Yes, I understand that aesthetically it would not match, but is that not a reason to deny?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Hernandez-Laberge, that certainly is a reasonable possibility. There's nothing that would preclude the property owner from planting additional trees and the Cook Pine staying on site. You know, it's a pretty relatively small footprint. It may potentially reduce the quantities of trees that are able to be planted, but I do think you could probably still plant what they propose to plant and allow the Cook Pine to retain. I think that, you know, you kind of hit the nail on the head. This was an item that we probably spent about 40 minutes up there discussing in great detail. And, you know, I think in terms of the gained benefit, to say that there wasn't, you know, an element of the sort of shoring up the aesthetic and the design element of that thoroughfare was certainly a part of the discussion.
All right, I'm going to hold it for now. I don't see any green lights flashing, and open it up for public comment. And again, I don't have any speaker slips. Do we have anybody remotely for public comment?
No hands are raised.
Okay, so that takes us to discussion, which I think we're well into, and motions. And I think, I mean, you've heard where my concern is. Okay, the lemon scented gum I get, the Cook Pine I don't really get, and were I to be making a motion, I would be moving that we approve the gum and deny the Cook Pine on the condition with the planting of the 3 olives and 2 coast live oaks, but I'd like to open that up for any discussion.
That sounds like a motion to me.
It was a what if.
I would like to make a motion to approve the removal of the lemon scented gum and deny the removal of the Cook Pine. However, I'm not sure where to move forward with the tree replantings. Mr. Slack, what was the applicant's original statement of how many trees they would plant? I believe it's my understanding is they offered to plant more coast live oaks after this. No, he had an original offer that we don't see right now, and during the meeting they upped it. So I'm just wondering what their original offer was.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, the original application, the applicant had suggested planting 4 olives. And during the discussion on site, the reference to the coast live oak and the value that they provide as a larger canopy tree, as well as their frequent occurrence within the area, was where the applicant made a recommendation to plant 3 olives and 2 coast live oaks in lieu of just the 4 olives that were originally proposed for planting.
Sorry, I've already started a motion, but I have one more question. May I ask?
Yeah.
Without the removal of the Cook Pine, is there still adequate space for 3 olives and 2 coast live oaks?
And Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, I believe that there is adequate space, yes. There also could be an argument made for the installation of those plants as proposed, and with time and development of the new trees, perhaps, you know, returning again when there's been success and establishment of the new trees to further pursue the removal of the Cook Pine at some point in the future.
Yeah, I like that. So I will make the motion that we approve the removal of the lemon-scented gum and deny the removal of the cook pine on the condition that the applicant plants a minimum of 3 olives and 2 coast live oaks as proposed.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second it. It seems to be a good, happy medium.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All righty. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to West Figueroa Street. Oh,
Chairman,
no, I'm sorry, it does not. I always miss one. Garden Street.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove 2 pepper trees. These are street trees located within the parkway at 920 Garden Street. The applicant listed several reasons for removal on the application, just conflict with utility lines, hardscape disruption, just, the inability for anything to grow in the parkway under the trees, and just the size and scale conflicts with the building. The committee reviewed the trees on site, noted that they were both in good shape. There was quick discussion, I think both from staff and the committee, that pruning certainly was warranted. The trees definitely need some maintenance. And that was part of the conversation as well. And I think that that was something that the committee noted could provide some relief in regards to the tree and the building and how close those two were, as well as some of the utility lines moving through it. Do want to draw attention to the fact that the overhead utility lines are well above the tree, and we're pretty used to seeing that, where Edison's trimming that tree, so it's really not in conflict with utility lines. Those secondaries, most of those are cable, phone, and they're able to coexist and move throughout the canopy of the tree without problems typically. The committee reviewed the hardscape. The sidewalks were actually in pretty good shape. The curb and gutter was in decent shape. The roadway was also in decent shape. Nothing currently is growing in the parkway. It is difficult for things to grow underneath California peppers. They do have an allelopathy that does prevent stuff from performing well underneath of them. Some stuff will grow, but lots of stuff won't. So there was a lot of truth in that statement. And ultimately, after review, the committee determined that they were functional and that they recommended denial of the street trees at 920 Garden Street.
Thank you, Mr. Slack. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Aldana, I saw your hand go first.
Yes. So as far as the pruning, who will do the pruning?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, these are, in this situation, pruning's needed, so it would be forestry staff that would schedule the work to be done. So it would be done, with normal maintenance by the forestry program. In some isolated incidents, if somebody, say, wanted to elevate the maintenance of their tree and we inspected it and made a determination that, from our perspective, it was well maintained, then a homeowner or property owner could get a permit from our office. That's a no-fee permit, but the work is done at their cost. But any time that we evaluate a tree and see that work needs done, that's either done by city staff or city contract staff.
And a rough guess of time, is it 3 months away, 6 months away? Just a rough guess.
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, I think every situation is pretty unique. Every tree that we look at that gets scheduled gets prioritized, and everything continually gets reprioritized. The honest conversation when we look at trees, not this specific example, but we tell people it's on average it can be 12 months before we're able to make it out there and take care of their needs. That sounds really long, and in some cases we would be there a lot sooner. Average growth for a lot of trees is maybe 6 inches per year, so it's not, like things change dramatically over that time, but we also try to set reasonable expectations for service.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark.
My question was just when might we anticipate pruning by forestry? That's it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess my only question as a follow-up really is the utilities, pruning for utilities, would you be deferring to Edison in that regard or managing it? Because I know who does a better job.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, so we actually are not allowed to go within 10 feet of energized conductors, so those utility lines, we can't really get that close to. Edison does a good job of top-down pruning, so there's plenty of distance there. So what we would be focusing on is if there's those cable, phone, those types of communication lines moving through the tree, maybe a tree branch is putting pressure on one of those lines, you know, we would do our best to try to free that up so that there's no conflicts or pressure. We would take care of all of that stuff. But in terms of the actual overhead utility, there's pretty good space, and Edison does a, you know, probably, you could argue, too good of a job of maintaining distance from the overhead electrical lines and the trees in town.
You should see what they did to my palm tree last week. By surprise. Okay. I think with that, I don't see any other green lights. We do have 2 public speakers for this item, and I'm going to take them in the order I received them. The first speaker is William Robinson, and you may come forward, and when I hit the little button, you will have 2 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you and welcome.
Can I lift the mic here? Okay. Good evening. My name is Will Robinson, and I'm speaking on behalf of the property owners of 920 Garden Street, petitioning for the removal of these 2 pepper trees. At the outset, I want to make clear that I do not take lightly the removal of trees, and I do believe in the rich benefits that a rich natural environment brings to our lives and community. Notwithstanding, it's also my opinion that our surrounding flora, particularly those designated as an invasive species, requires management for it to be healthy, safe, and grow in a way that is harmonious with its environment. These 2 pepper trees that we are requesting to be removed no longer achieve this harmony. They have outgrown the spaces for which they were intended and have become increasingly problematic. Their roots have made the sidewalk uneven, and recognizing the slope of this block of Garden Street have made it hazardous for pedestrians. Their canopy now extends well beyond the roof of our building, damaging our gutters and creating leaks in our roof. Their constant shedding of leaves and seed pods clog our gutters and drains, cover our outdoor spaces and sidewalks, and become a perpetual trip hazard that is only exacerbated when wet. Furthermore, the roots have damaged the irrigation systems in the parklets beyond repair and turned the spaces designed for grass and plantings into unsightly dirt patches. We recognize the value of maintaining tree density and promoting urban beautification. And if they are removed, we intend to replace them with a tree that is better suited for the parklet and enhances the aesthetic of the 900 block. We will, of course, defer to the City Parks Commission to assure any tree planted is in accordance with city guidelines and specifications. And we are also willing and open to working with our neighbors to find an optimal solution. Lastly, if our request is denied, we would then like to request your approval to trim the trees back to the sidewalk and away from our buildings. Naturally, given this request, we are also putting the city on notice that it would be near impossible to maintain the sidewalks and parklet in a safe manner without the removal of these trees. And we hope that the city will be able to resolve a potentially preventable liability. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. All right. And we have a second speaker, as Stephen Olson. And I need to stop and give me 2 seconds. Two. Okay.
Hello, Chairman McGill and Commissioners. My name's Stephen Olson. I have an office right around the corner from those trees, and I walk by them pretty much every day. From what I can see, there's plenty of room for hardscape. It's easy to walk next to them. I don't see any roots pushing up any sidewalk. In my opinion, pepper trees are gorgeous. I believe they're protected, aren't they? Or am I wrong? Anyways, I believe that they increase the curb appeal and that they should stay. And finally, I believe these trees are extremely old. The trunks on those trees are huge. They probably predate the building. So maybe it's the building that should actually go and not the trees. But I think that their age is another reason to preserve them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we hit stop here. So with that, I'd like to be, as I open it up for discussion, but I'd like to ask 3 questions based on the public comment. First question was, did you, when you were visiting with the Street Tree Committee, have any conversation or see any evidence around roof leaks and their association with these trees? My second question is, how old are they? And my third is, I've never heard about pepper trees being protected. Can you just clarify that?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, I would have to defer to the representative of the property in regards to any type of building damage in the way of like leaking roofs.
But that wasn't discussed as part of your visit or part of the application?
There was, multiple listed reasons on the application, and each one of those was discussed. There was not any like supplemental information that really illustrated that there had been leaking or damage to the roofs as a result of debris or tree growth. The age is unknown. We'd probably have to do some digging and probably still couldn't make a determination unless there was, photo documentation is always like one of the greatest ways to try to target at least a rough age of where the trees are. But, based on the size, they've been there for a significant amount of time, probably several decades, I would imagine. And then, California pepper is interesting because it's endemic, it's non-native, it's actually Peruvian. That's why it's now called a pepper tree instead of California pepper. It's not protected as a species, but all street trees are technically protected by city ordinance. So in a way of saying it, it technically is protected. But in terms of the California pepper tree being protected, it's a non-protected species.
Okay, thanks. That's what I thought. Yeah, of course, Commissioner Clark.
So if if the removal is denied and forestry goes out, when it's able to prune, will the tree be pruned away from the rain gutters?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, our goal is always to try to get as much distance as we can from the canopy to the structure. These situations are challenging. There's basically no setback here, so when you have a large canopy tree, it's difficult to eliminate all leaves or twigs or limbs from crossing over the sidewalk and going towards the property. We would try to hit the sweet spot there and try to provide as much as we could. We just simply can't prune all the way back to the back of sidewalk without potentially jeopardizing like the long-term structural integrity of the tree in terms of just canopy balance.
Okay. Commissioner Aldana.
Okay, let's just say if it is denied, is there a way to at least expedite the trimming? This way they don't have to wait a year to have the tree trimmed?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Aldana, I think it's safe to say yes. I was speaking in general terms in regards to what we sort of our common dialogue with residents with trees. As noted, when I gave the brief presentation when we were on site, it was, acknowledged by all forestry staff present as well as the committee that the trees need pruning. So I think it's safe to say that if in the event of denial, the pruning request would be elevated to the best of our abilities.
Thank you. I guess at this point, we were kind of half questioning and half discussion, prepared for more discussion or a motion. I'm sorry, we're getting near the end of this one.
Is it too late to do that? We're just in a bunch right here, the neighbors.
We're at 920, we're behind. We're at El Caserio.
Well, it's really, quite frankly, it's quite out of order. If I can give you 2 minutes, I need a speaker. If somebody speaks, somebody does a speaker slip, and.
Thank you.
Chair McGill, yes, if you'd ask that the speaker complete a speaker slip before speaking, we can then take it public
Yeah.
comment.
And I will be,
Sure.
I will be cutting you off at 2 minutes.
All right.
Great,
My name's
thanks.
Wendy Foster, and I live,
Hold on. Okay.
okay, my
Okay.
name's Wendy Foster, and I live in back of this in El Caserio,
Okay.
which, as you know, are all historic houses back there. And this tree, our neighbor has very kindly offered to trim it and pay the price for having it trimmed. And we don't want that tree removed. It is every tree is beautiful. And if it's the money, because I don't see it's an ugly tree, I see that it's competing with the wires and something needs to be done, but it's not worth taking that tree out. That's good.
Yep, thank you very much. And just long.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you. We'll get you on record here.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
And just clarification, it's 2 trees, correct?
It is 2 trees.
Both.
It is both, yes. All right. I guess just by way of my, 2 cents in the discussion, the one thing I look for is hardscape disruption. I didn't see any. The sidewalks are fine, the roads are fine. I think the trees are gorgeous. And obviously been around for a long time. I'm prepared to make a motion if somebody else would like to make the motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move that we support, and this is going to be horribly stated, the recommendation from the Forestry Division? Street Tree Advisory, thank you, to deny the removal of both trees.
Do we have a second?
I can second that.
Okay.
I would like to add that I understand, I live with a pepper tree, so I get where you're coming from, and I think forestry is really going to make a good effort to help you out with the pruning, and you can always reach out to Public Works for sidewalk disruptions and stuff, so thanks for your time.
Yeah, I live with a pepper tree too. I'm sorry, we need to. Yeah, thank you very much, thank you. Okay, and I think with that, we have, unless we have any further discussion, I'll take it for, we have one more discussion point.
If it's okay to add it, the trimming could be expedited.
I think that we'll just take that not as a part of the motion, but that is be part of the conversation with forestry following. All right, and with that, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I do need to, before Mr. Robinson in particular, it says, any action of the Parks and Recreation Commission made pursuant to Santa Barbara Municipal Code, Chapter 1520, may be appealed to the City Council within 10 days pursuant to provisions of Section 13050 of the Municipal Code. So you do have right of appeal within 10 days to City Council. Thank you. And with that, that takes us to West Figueroa Street.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, just to close the loop too in regards to the question about maintenance, we'll reach out to Mr. Robinson and also the applicant and advise them of the timing for maintenance once we get a chance to go back and look at our schedules. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove 3 trees, 1 avocado, a Japanese persimmon, and also an apricot. These trees are located within the front setback of the property at 528 West Figueroa Street. This parcel is going through significant redevelopment. There was a supplemental document showing a site plan where they're putting in a brand new multi-unit building, redeveloping the front landscaping, also fully improving the right-of-way, and by that I mean in putting a parkway and also sidewalks in front of the new development on the site plan. And as part of the application, the applicant expressed an interest in replacing the 3 fruit trees with 2 Mexican fan palms that are within the front setback of the property, and then also a designated street tree that would be planted in the new parkway once the right-of-way is fully improved. The committee reviewed the 3 trees, noted that they were all in pretty good shape, pretty unique to have 3 well-proportioned, pretty healthy fruit trees in front of a property. Lots of discussion about the benefits that not only healthy trees provided, but also 3 healthy fruit trees provided. There was conversation, and I guess I would say general concern that the proposed street tree just simply would not be able to be planted as proposed due to the guy wires. So you can see the guy wires in the photograph. They're pretty much the full extent of the property, and there's very little wiggle room once guy wires are installed, unless utilities are being completely undergrounded. You know, the engineering of those guy wires is pretty set in stone, and there's not a lot of flexibility. So during review of the request, there was, again, significant concern expressed about potentially removing these trees due to redevelopment with the fear of losing tremendous amounts of canopy, specifically not being able to plant this street tree. In looking at the site plan, and the requirements that you basically can only have landscaping within the front setback, there was general agreement amongst the committee members that the trees could likely be retained as part of site improvements, which is simple modifications to what's currently being proposed in the landscape design. And ultimately, after review, the committee made a recommendation to deny the request for the 3 fruit trees in the front setback of the property at 528 West Figueroa Street. And just as an aside, we have had communications with the project applicant, and they were, I can't say they were thrilled, but they were pretty comfortable with the ability to incorporate these trees into the design. So there's really not a fear that, you know, despite the recommendation from the committee, that this can't become a reality with some subtle design changes.
Any questions? You may have already addressed one of mine. So, I mean, as I understand it, before they can go forward, they can't get full planning permission until they've gone through the tree approval process, correct?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, that is correct.
So without either us approving or them redesigning they cannot go forward with their development at this point. Is that correct?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, that would be correct. So if the committee, or the commission, I'm sorry, makes a motion to deny the request for the removal, the process sort of behind the scenes is we provide a letter with the commission action and the appeal information and all the particulars about the review. Oftentimes that gets forwarded to planning staff and it becomes part of their packet. And so moving forward, the trees will now need to be reflected on the site and landscape plans and incorporated into the design. And that would become project design approval would be granted at some point in the future, and it would show those 3 trees being incorporated into the new landscape design.
And the applicant is saying that they can do that.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, that is correct, based on communications I've had with the applicant.
Okay. And this gets into my consistency questions from earlier, which is that with a vast sprawling property on a hill where there's lots of space, it seems to be easier to get approval to remove really healthy, mature trees than it can in the more densely populated parts of the city that deserve approval for redevelopment every bit as much as the bigger sprawling houses on the hill. And that's where I'm coming from with some of these consistency questions. Okay. I'm not seeing any green lights. So I have no speaker slips. Do we have anybody remote?
Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand. No hands are raised.
Okay. With that, I'll open it up for discussion and/or a motion. I think you've all kind of know where my concerns lie with this.
Just one point of discussion is the points you make are really interesting, and they're about equity. But when you look at the urban forest, it doesn't matter where that forest is. It belongs to all of us. This is our world, it's our environment, it's our climate change. It's not the people on the hill versus the people down below. It's like, it's our forest. So, I appreciate your comments and your thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. My concern is it's if someone comes in and says, I've got space to put 5 oak trees, it becomes easier to take down a mature tree than if you don't have space to put in an oak tree. And that's something I wrestle with. No questions and no comments. Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to agree with the street tree committee. The developer seems to be okay with it, so I would say we should be also.
And then that would be that there are no findings that apply. Yeah.
Correct.
All right, we have a motion. Do we?
I can second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so moved. And that takes us to, I believe, our last one, which is Sola Street.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove an Italian cypress. This tree is located within the front setback of the property at 326 West Sola Street. The applicant expressed an interest in removing this Italian cypress, essentially for a landscape update. So a few years back, there was a matching Italian cypress specimen on the other side of the entrance that died. It was removed, and the applicant was hoping to gain approval to remove this Italian cypress with the intent on planting 2 new matching Italian cypress, so that there would be the formal. It's a very formal tree, and the formal nature of the planting, they wanted matching specimens, and that you can't really prune a tree like this. You can't really reduce the height to create like a phased-in sort of matching approach with a new tree being planted on the opposite side of the front setback. The committee reviewed the tree, evaluated the request, noted the tree was in good health, and that there was essentially nothing in terms of a finding that would support the removal of the tree. Comments were that, despite the retention of this specific tree, nothing precludes the property owner from still planting a young Italian cypress on the other side of the property. It was a pretty straightforward review, and ultimately, after discussion and review, the committee made a recommendation to deny the request, stating that at this time, no findings in 15.24 could be met.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? I got 2 quick ones. Oh, no, go ahead. You first.
I'm sure you're going to ask, what is Theosophy? You want to ask.
What is the what?
Theosophy? That building is the.
Oh, I know, I looked it up.
Okay, probably irrelevant. But that was one of my major questions. But my question is, just with regards to your comments earlier about the cook pine being dense and straight, what is a cypress akin to a cook pine in the fact that it doesn't provide a lot of, it's not keeping a lot of heat from building up. There's no canopy to shield us from the effects of heat buildup, and there's not a lot of canopy to keep storm water from running off. Is it?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, those are accurate statements. I think the real distinction here between the review of this specific request versus the other ones was, it's kind of like for like replacement. So there's, if you're looking at removal, you're taking it very serious, and you're trying to weigh the long-term benefits if you do elect for removal. And in this case, you're taking out a healthy tree of a specific species to plant the same exact species in the same location, just a much, much smaller tree. So it was really hard for the committee to support the removal of this. And then, the other piece too, which we did kind of touch on, is that the view and the rationale to support a removal in the street tree ordinance is different than in the setback ordinance, and the findings really kind of drive the decision-making, whereas the rationale for the street tree removals can be different, and I think the gained benefit of the urban forest is something that's leaned on heavily in the right-of-way review, and not as much in the setback removals due to the specific language in the findings.
Thank you.
So I guess my two questions, they're related. Is whatever did in its sibling going to do it in? And if so, how much longer does this tree have? And then how fast would a new one, if that has plenty of time left and they do plant a new one, how long until it catches up? And really what's driving those two questions is if that tree is going to, whatever it is that killed the first tree is going to kill the second tree within 5 years, say, I'm making that number up, obviously, then it kind of makes more sense to put the two in together and let them grow up together.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, good question. I think that based on on-site evaluation, we would say that its long-term age is indeterminate. It didn't show any real signs of stress or disease or anything that would indicate that its time is short in the real world. So I think the short answer is that it looks like it's in really good health, and there's really no reason to expect it to decline rapidly in the short term. And we did not receive any real specifics in relation to why the other tree died. Italian cypress is a tree that does have difficulties with a specific pathogen, and they've kind of fallen out of favor in the urban environment as a result of that. But this one looked to be like the picture of health, so there's no reason for us to expect that to change in the near future. I think in response to how quickly would one grow, I think some of that depends on how big is it when it's put in and how much care and attention is given to it once it is installed. It's safe to assume at least a foot of growth every year for almost all woody plants. So depending on the size that it's put in and the amount of care that it receives, it's going to take a long time before you get anything matching. And to say that this will survive and you'll get perfect matching ones in 20 years, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball in that sense, but planted with good care, you would expect average growth out of a new, young, healthy Italian cypress.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll turn it to public comment. Don't have any speaker slips. Is there anybody remote?
No hands are raised.
All righty. With that, we'll turn it over for discussion and/or motion as appropriate.
I'm looking at the findings for removal, and I don't see any. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of a mixed mind of this one. I actually understand why they want to do what they want to do. It's a pretty, it's kind of like missing one of the columns in a Greek temple. It's like I get it, but I also get that we generally err on the side of the healthy tree. Which is why I was asking the questions of what it would take to get a match set without, yeah.
How much water does it take to establish a young Italian cypress as opposed to how much this one is taking now?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, I would say on average, 10 to 15 gallons probably weekly is what, it really kind of depends on the size of the plant, so it could vary. If they plant like a 15 gallon or something, like 10 to 15 gallons weekly is like a really nice amount. You could stretch that and not do it as often, but then you risk, not encouraging quick establishment and growth. Based on what we saw on site and my vague recollection, I don't think there's any irrigation going on at all. So I'd say this tree's just kind of doing its thing on its own. If they are irrigating, it's very, very infrequently. All that plant material is pretty established and very tough. And I would not be surprised if there's no irrigating going on currently.
I understand where they're coming from too, but I can't find a finding for removal.
Yeah. Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I just had one other thought. To me, it seems that it's blocking that window, which would either, prevent airflow, prevent light, potentially prevent, escape in an emergency. But if the remedy is to plant another one on the other side and have both of them growing up, then we're kind of back to the same place. I'm not sure why they want their windows blocked. I'd rather have something lower if I was going to take something out. I'm looking at that and my cypress that I have in my yard and going, oh my God, is that what it's going to become one day? Oh no. But they're not seeming to want to have airflow or light or ingress, egress through that window.
Well, I think some of us are still thinking, just related question, why are there no why do we not have to make findings for street tree removals as opposed to setback trees?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, it's just how the ordinance was developed. So there is rationale. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
That kind of guides. If you go into 15.20, it does list sort of process and procedure in terms of how things are evaluated, whereas 15.24 takes it a step further. And so there is evaluation criteria. It just differs slightly in that there isn't like true findings in 15.20 like there is in 15.24.
I was just wondering what people who wrote the ordinances, what they were thinking of when they.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I am going to make a motion. I'm just going to see what, since we're facing resounding silence up here on this table. And I am going to twist this a little bit, and I'm going to make a motion that we approve the recommendation, approve the request to remove the Italian cypress, and I'm going to do it, I'm twisting, and I'm saying that the character of the immediate neighborhood will be actually improved, not materially affected, in the sense that the aesthetics of the street will be improved by it being brought back to what it was, which was matching columns of trees.
I don't.
Chair, you said that your motion was to
Approve,
the recommendation.
no, approve the request, approve the applicant's request to remove the tree and replace it with a pair of Italian cypresses, on the grounds that it will actually benefit the neighborhood by giving it a match set.
I tend to concur, so I will second.
Are we open for discussion?
We are open for discussion. We have a motion and a second.
On that basis, I feel that that is getting back to your inconsistency of what you were concerned about previously with the other property up the hill that wanted to have the olive trees and a consistent look rather than having these random trees. And so now we're getting back into an
Right, because that cook pine is not very symmetrical.
Absolutely. So, yep, and it gets down to is there is no one size fits all when you're talking to trees. I mean, there's always, but yes, I'm actually why I have stayed quiet about this as long as I have. Yes. So we have a motion, we have a second. I'm going to put it to a vote, and if that fails, we'll go for another motion and another second. So the motion is to approve the applicant's request to remove the tree and replace it with two matching Italian cypresses. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have three. Opposed? Okay, I think that just passed. Correct. What was that? My findings were a bit garbled. They were that the character of the immediate neighborhood will actually be improved. So what would that take, which is not a formal finding? So I would call that reasonable and practical development of the property is the closest that I can come from. No, but they're enhancing the landscaping. Mm-hmm.
I think you can actually do whatever you want, but I was this is character of the neighborhood.
Chair Clark and commissioners, I mean, Chair McGill, the commission's taken action.
We have taken action at this
So we need
point.
to move on to
Yeah,
the
we
next
do.
item on the
We do.
agenda.
Yes, I agree with that completely. Okay. That takes us to Paterna Road.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to co-designate a street tree species for Paterna Road. This is a somewhat unique request for co-designation. The request stems from unpermitted tree removals that took place a couple years back on Paterna Road. It was a pretty big deal, and we're still kind of working through the process. As part of this process, there's an expectation for restoration. Essentially, our goal is to plant the same species of tree back, and that's all being done at the cost of the property owner where the trees were removed. It's unique because Paterna Road historically was one of these streets that did not have a designation. Back in 2017, it was designated for Quercus engelmannii, which is the Engelmann oak. Despite the fact that an overwhelming majority of all existing trees, several of which are significantly old, are the brush cherry, the designation for Engelmann oak prevents us from planting brush cherries back, which is the neighborhood expectation. There's a real love for that species of tree on that specific street. There's a long history of its use on that street as well. So staff returned to the Street Tree Advisory Committee asking to modify the existing designation to a co-designation, and that means that we would be able to use both the Engelmann oak and the brush cherry depending on the situation and the site. And in this specific instance, we would be planting the brush cherry. After discussion and review, the committee made a recommendation to approve the modification to the street tree designation listing to include brush cherry as a co-designation for all of Paterna Road.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions? I have none. Do we have any public, I have no slips. Do we have any comment? Okay. Any discussion or a motion?
I'm prepared to make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Advisory Committee decision to co-designate the Engelmann oak and the brush cherry for all of Paterna Road.
I'll second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, thank you very much. Before you go, a few years ago, you somebody handed out these nice laminated little cheat sheets with some new members of the commission and probably some that have lost their cheat sheets. I know, I've texted it to you many times. Could we get some, maybe for the next meeting, just some laminated copies of this?
Chair McGill and Commissioners, we would be thrilled to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I carry it with me everywhere. Thank you.
Could it be mailed in the packet?
Mine's pinned to my bulletin board. Okay, that takes us to the director's report. Director Zachary.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, we've given you quite a bit of information this month, and we'll strive to continue to do that as an opportunity for us to share information with the Commission without it being a discussion item on the agenda, because sometimes there's nothing to discuss, but we want you to know the different things that our staff are doing to advance any number of community initiatives and programs and services. So one of the areas that often goes unnoticed, perhaps, unless you frequent Mackenzie Park or Pershing Park or Plaza Del Mar, is what happens after Fiesta. So our staff, in particular Sarah Knowles, who's our special events coordinator, as well as other recreation staff, do a ton of heavy lifting with the permitting of all of the events for Fiesta, because many of them occur in city parks, including the ones I just mentioned, as well as De La Guerra Plaza. Mission Historical Park has overflow from the Mission and Fiesta Pequeña. And we prepare for Fiesta and then have to recover from Fiesta in a way, because all of those park spaces are used by other groups and members of the public for their enjoyment. So we wanted to take a little bit of time to sort of talk about some of our unsung heroes, which is our Parks Division staff that actually have to do a lot of prep work, particularly as it relates to Pershing and Mackenzie Park, because we have horses, materials, rides, any number of booths and people that go through there. And so they have to spend quite a bit of time preparing, because we want to avoid as much compaction of the turf as possible. We also want to make sure we don't lose a lot of our irrigation heads and have to replace them. And then also make sure that this, the turf is as can be recovered as quickly as possible once it's over. So a number of activities happen before Fiesta, a number happen after Fiesta, where we spend a lot of time going through those turf areas. And if you drove by Mackenzie, you saw it was yellow, no longer green. But once they get the irrigation systems back up and running, and they do aerification and dethatching, and allowing basically water and oxygen to get through to that turf, we do fertilizer, seed, and soil amendments, and try to get it back on track as quickly as possible. This is work that we do outside our normal regular duties, and staff are estimating this year we spent about 345 hours at a cost to our department of $25,000. Fiesta is a much cherished event. We're pleased and excited that we had more of an event this year than last year. The pandemic definitely put a pause on those types of activities. At the same time, it is something that the city, and not just Parks and Recreation, but also Public Works and our police department also support, and just want to recognize the commitment that the city has in terms of resources to advance those initiatives. Also wanted to share with you, school has started, right? Summer's over, it's hard to believe. School has started, and we're pleased that we are offering our recreation after-school program this year. Again, another program that was placed on hold due to the pandemic, restarted last year in a much modified form because it was really difficult to hire staff. That hasn't changed very much, even though we've taken a number of steps to increase our staff salaries. So this year, we're actually offering it in 4 different campuses, and it's in your staff report. Adams, Monroe, Roosevelt, and Washington. We currently have 220 youth that are signed up. This is a program that does have a fee associated with it. It's $1,200 for the year, basically 10 weeks, $120 a week. And we sort of broke it down to give you a sense of really for the parent, and clearly nothing's free, so it does cost, but it's a great deal. Would also just want to let the commission know that this program is highly subsidized by the city. So our subsidy can range anywhere between 35 and 45% for the cost of this program. And we are moving into more discussions about fiscal sustainability and where city funds go. And so we'll be sharing with the commission as we go forward, where do these funds go and why are we doing it? Why is it important? We know youth and children benefit from this. Certainly their parents benefit as well because it gives them a safe place for their child to be after school. And similarly with the recreation after school, the sports leagues that we offer, which is entirely free. We had to put that on hold as well because of the pandemic, but we've reintroduced it this year, and it's something the city covers in its entirety. I have a lot of really great programs that staff do over 8 weeks: flag football, basketball, and soccer. Not only do kids get to have this active space after school when they've been sitting around all day, they get to interact with each other, build their team building, communication skills, but they also get to work with kids from around the city because they'll be involved in great games and practices, and they learn skills, and it's something really positive for those kids. So once again, we only have 120 student capacity. And the direct cost for that service is $30,000. That's direct cost. If you think about it, we're not adding in all the overhead and where they're actually playing and that kind of thing. But wanted to share that we're excited that we're offering that again, and then just acknowledge the commitment that the city has to provide these programs. And then lastly, it's Creek Week almost. It's hard to believe it's almost September. The next time we see the commission, it'll be September. Hard to believe. But the 23rd Creek Week will occur this year. Hard to believe it's 23 years as well. It's a week long. It's something that we collaborate with other communities in the South Coast on. It's not just city that does it, but also nonprofits get engaged. City of Goleta gets engaged, Carpinteria gets engaged, and different activities are offered throughout the community. Some of the things that we like to do is host tours of our projects and restoration areas. The Land Shark is often very popular, and it's narrated by City Creeks Division staff. And then they're adding a new one with Coffee at the Creek. So if you want to meet with Jill Murray, who's our water quality research coordinator, I was just looking at the website, and it looks like Wednesday, September 21st. For those of us that can go have coffee at 9:30 in the morning, somebody will, I'm sure. However, you need to contact staff for sort of more event details. And then interestingly enough, there's also, an opportunity to do a tour of the Tahigas landfill, and that's on Wednesday, September 21st as well, from 12 to 1:30. So encourage commissioners, as well as anybody that might be watching this meeting or seeing a replay, to go to sbcreekweek.com and find exciting activities that you can get engaged in. And then, of course, I can't forget to say that it also dovetails with Coastal Cleanup Day. So that's a statewide program, something that anybody can do anywhere on any Saturday in terms of beach cleanups. But there are a number of organizations that host different locations. With that, happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Marlene.
Go, yeah. Oh, there, yes, I see.
Flip something up.
Yeah.
I'm so excited that the after-school sports leagues are back, but I am curious, we went from 10 to 4 schools. Which 4 schools?
The same schools that we have the RAP program, I believe, but don't quote me on that. Part of it is, to be honest, we're challenged with staffing. There's a funding challenge too. So when we look at our budget every year, we have a very stiff revenue commitment, how we allocate that, staff recruitment, but also what's also increasingly becoming apparent to us is finding drivers, because these kids are driven around as well. It's becoming more and more complicated and difficult to have qualified drivers to do this work.
Okay.
be able to support the program.
And I do appreciate that. I'm just looking at the 4 that were chosen. And I understood, you know, if it's a $1,200 per child contribution from the parent, I get the 4 schools that were offered that opportunity. And if the after-school sports is a free program, I'm really confused about, I mean, I guess you're explaining it because of staffing and practicality and logistics, but I'm just like, Harding, Franklin, Cleveland, they're completely left out of this conversation and opportunity and access. Where's the equity?
Again, we, once upon a time, were able to serve more, and unfortunately, we don't have the resources and capacity, and the free programs are for kids that have parents that can't pay.
Right,
as well.
and those are primarily at the schools that I just mentioned,
Right.
Franklin and Harding and Cleveland, right?
And sometimes it also involves just ability to provide the space and the location and the programming, and it all becomes a very complicated process for us to figure out. In a perfect world, kids would stay on campus and have those activities there. I do know that the school district, we used to do the AOK program, and the school district took that over for us, and they're actually doing that, and I know they're expanding that program as well. Not only expanding it to different school sites, and I don't have all the details right now, but also opening it up so that it's not just for kids in need, but they have a staggered offering depending on the financial ability of the family. Yeah.
What, was there a committee that made the decision about which of the 4 schools would get these opportunities?
Chair McGill and Commissioner Ananda LaBerge, we would have to get back to you because it really probably boils down to working with the school district and the principals and how it's located. So we do that even with our summer fund program. So we were able to operate on 2 campuses this summer. We only had 1 campus last summer. Once upon a time, we had 3 campuses. So working with the school district is a critical component of what we try to do.
Interesting, okay, thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner Aldana.
As far as your report, can you touch on Dwight Murphy? Because I know on Monday they went to the ABR. I went there for something else at 6, and then I noticed, so if you could touch on that. Because and then plus, I don't think we were notified that Parks and Rec was going to go to the ABR. At least I don't remember seeing the email.
Sure.
It would have been nice to be notified.
Chair McGill and commissioners, yes, we were before the Architectural Board of Review on Monday for what's called project design approval for the Dwight Murphy Field renovation project. As a matter of practice, we don't always notify the commission of all of our design review hearings. We have a number of them that range depending on the project, and we did receive project design approval. When this report is prepared, it was prepared last week, and at the time we prepared where we can report out either what happened or what we think the commission might want to know about what is about to happen. And not having it on the agenda is only something that, it's not something that we deemed we needed to share with the commission at that time. So I could have certainly notified you after the fact, but we did clear the next hurdle for that project.
Thanks.
As far as myself, I wish I would have known, because I would have liked to have at least given input on some possible changes on the parking. It would just been nice to be.
So Chairman Gale and commissioners, when we go to project design approval, it's basically based on what's been previously reviewed and approved by both the commission and the planning commission. It's kind of the refinement. There are no nothing is really substantially changed on the project.
And one thing I've done, and is possible for anybody to do, is to go into, the old website, I assume the new website's the same, and sign up to receive agendas for any commission or board that hears our projects, and then you can review the agenda every month, which is what I do.
I had one question, I guess, and this kind of goes back to what I was asking and kind of gets to what Commissioner Aldana was pointing out, and maybe it's because we're new and we haven't had the opportunity to really participate and any design conversations or projects that are going, because by the time we joined earlier this year, everything was in the works. So how does that work as far as if there's a project coming up like Dwight Murphy, the proposal would be presented to the commission would have opportunity to review and consider and comment and?
Yes.
And we would do that in a meeting
Chair
like this?
McGill and Commissioner Anander-LaBerge, yes. So that project, just like Ortega Park, started 4 years ago. And the commission, I count off the top of my head, probably weighed in 3 or 4 times during the development of that project. And also did it in collaboration and in coordination with the Neighborhood Advisory Council, and I believe a number of you were involved at that time as well.
Yeah.
So I will lay out for the commission, I think as part of your capital program project presentation, which you got a little bit of during budget, and the steps. And depending on the size, scope of the project, different processes get applied. Every project that we do in a park or a recreation facility comes to this commission. The commission's role in terms of its authority and whether or not it makes findings depends on the scope and scale of the project. And I can explain it more, but this commission did make findings to approve both the Ortega Park project as well as the Dwight Murphy Field renovation project, and those findings were made prior to the Planning Commission hearing on the project. So it was a requirement that we do that before going to Planning Commission. Does that help? So yes, it can seem kind of complicated because there's so many steps in the process, and then the Architectural Board of Review is on design only, not what is going into the project, because that's already been determined. And then ultimately, when we go to the Building and Safety Department to get our building permit, then we have to make sure we've proposed a project that actually meets all the building codes. So hopefully that helps, and it certainly would be happy to do kind of a capital project 101 to walk through each one, and then going forward, sort of try to do the best we can to sort of advise the commission of where we are in each project, so you have a sense of where it all falls.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to, and thank you for that, in addition to I guess call it the formal discussions and presentations that we have up here, you know, each of these projects has numerous engagements, workshops, community events, and we've always been invited and encouraged to go and participate, because then you really start to hear things firsthand and engage firsthand, and that's an important, to my mind, an important piece of it.
And for the commission, when we do have a community meeting, it's not a commission meeting. So part of it that we always want to know is if we have a quorum of the commission going to a community meeting. It's a great opportunity to hear what community members bring forward, because that helps inform the process.
Yeah, it helps all of us. All right, I mean, I guess leave it with that. I actually had similar questions about how the schools got. Yes, I'll give you a second. I had similar questions about how schools are chosen, particularly for the free after-school programs, and that's, you know, that certainly is an interesting conversation. I think it's really, you know, important that everybody be aware of how much family support the department is providing in both the free and the paid programs for children after school. I mean, it's not just for the kids, but it's whole families that are gaining from this. And it's, you know, you tend to think about parks as being green spaces and summer programs, and it's a much broader impact on the community than that, which becomes very important when we have budget conversations. All right, I think I'll just wrap it there. You may ask a quick question, and then we will wrap it there.
Is there a community cleanup this weekend? I saw posters when I was looking at trees. Is it meets at Bonet Park, but I didn't stop and read.
I'm sorry, I can't
Oh,
hear
sorry.
you.
Is there a community cleanup on the west side that you're aware of this coming weekend?
Yes, Chair McGill and Commissioner Clark, there is one on Saturday. We are not hosting it. It's being hosted by Environmental Services at Bonet Park. I can send you the information about that. I don't remember off the
I'll
top
look it
of
up
my
online.
head.
I just saw sandwich boards when I was driving through, and I didn't know if we
Correct.
were involved.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that takes us to old business. I'm not seeing any old business. New business, I do not believe we have any new business.
If we wanted to request to put something on an agenda, would that be, could we ask for it under new business? Make a motion to do such?
That's not really how it's, I think it's best if we bring it up during the director's report or whenever it comes up in the
Chair
natural
McGill
part.
and Commissioner Under the Bears, you can't take an action on an item that's not on the agenda.
But what is new business? for?
However, you're more than freely to email the chair and me saying there's an item that you'd like to understand when it could become on the agenda. And then any number of reasons would determine when that could be scheduled.
I mean, the reason we can't agenda here is because it's kind of a chicken and egg thing, but it's for example, new business last month was the election of the chair and vice chair, but that was on the agenda so that the public could see it and potentially commented on it if they had wanted to. And that's really, it's making sure that anything that we're going to action is published at least 72 hours in advance.
So Chair McGill and Commissioners, one thing that we could do that might be helpful is once upon a time, pre-pandemic, as part of your director's report, we tried to put upcoming agenda items that we thought the commission would want to know in advance. And that might be an opportunity to then respond, yes, yay, great, and oh, can we also add this at some point in the future?
That seems like a
So we could do that so we can structure it and then we can document it and then it's part of our actual official meeting.
That seems like a very elegant and simple solution.
It also will help staff because we get things from all over and it would also help us be able to determine when we can also do it because of where we are in our workload or whatever might be happening, how cross-eyed we are on whatever's going on right now.
Yeah, that seems like a good way forward
Okay,
on that.
so I'll be happy to do that moving forward.
All right. With that, I believe we are adjourned. Thank you very much and see you all next month.